You're on.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Denise Comer. This is a writing workshop with English Composition 1, Achieving Expertise. I'm delighted to welcome three learners from our MOOC this morning. Would each of you introduce yourselves and let us know where you're joining us from?
Certainly, I'm Donna Boomgarden, and I'm joining you from the beautiful town of Hoffman Estates, Illinois, located outside of Chicago.
I'm Mingyi. I'm from China, Guangzhou, south of China.
Thank you.
I'm David Mills. I'm from Concord, New Hampshire, our state capital.
Okay, thank you. So we are in week 10 of our MOOC, and our writers in the class have just finished providing and receiving peer feedback on a draft of Project 3 case study. And so this week everybody is working on revising their case study, and I thought this week might be a good week to have a workshop because we can have the added focus of thinking about how we build on the feedback that others give us and how we can use an opportunity of getting feedback to talk about our revision plan with other people and also get more input. And then if you didn't get enough feedback or if you have new questions from the feedback, you can raise those here too. So we have drafts, and I think Donna has volunteered to go first. So those of you who are following, who are watching this live or watching it recorded, you can go to the forums where the volunteer forum was and see the Donna's draft as well as Minnie's and David's drafts when we get to those. So Donna, I'm going to turn to you in a second, and if you could share with us maybe what your primary concerns are at this point with the draft, what you'd especially like feedback on, and then if you want to update us on anything that your peers have already said about your drafts that you know, so we don't have to repeat what others have already said, we can build new, or we can help you plan on how to approach and integrate their feedback too. So
Certainly. Okay, well, my main concern was the last writing class I took was in college over 30 years ago. And it was much different back then. And so all these assignments were brand new, had no idea really how to do them. So my concern is basically how to incorporate expertise. Do I come out and say this is the expertise, or do I do it in a more subtle way? And I tried to do it in a more subtle way.
okay,
Okay.
thank you. And did you already have a chance to get some feedback from peers?
I did. Some people, their feedback was very positive all the way around. Some of them liked the way I did it more subtly, and others were more critical, saying you need to put more information about the expertise. So I'm still a little confused.
Okay. All right, great. So we, the members of our workshop have already presumably read one another's drafts because we got the drafts a little while ago. But maybe Donna, if you could just choose, we don't have time, unfortunately, for everyone to read their entire paper, but maybe if you could choose a two-paragraph segment or so that to refresh ourselves, and then we'll spend 60 seconds collecting our feedback and then provide you feedback.
Sure. I'll give you a quick synopsis. It's a case study of a person who tried to start her genealogy and saw the commercials on TV for Ancestry.com and said, perfect, all I got to do is put my name in there and I'll find all this information, and became extremely frustrated right from the start because that's not really how it works. It's not that easy. So I'll basically read you the opening paragraph and a little bit through there. When suddenly someone has the bright idea to start researching their family history, it's often short-lived. They ask their parents and other relatives for names of the farthest generation they can remember, and then turn to the internet with both barrels blazing. Disappointment then ensues because very little information can be found if you are limited in your data to begin with. So they try another website with the same results, another site with similar results. What started out as a dream to delve into the past becomes a source of contention, and many just plain give up. What are they doing wrong? They have the names and possibly birth of their grandparents and great-grandparents. Why wasn't any information found? It all seems so easy to do on the TV commercials. The mistakes made by beginning genealogist researchers can crash the dreams of even the most enthusiastic of researchers. Sarah was one such researcher, and with a little help from someone with experience, Sarah's dream of writing her family history became reality. And then I go in and talk about the different steps you need. First, basically being interviewing as many family members as you can, not necessarily for names and dates, but you should be asking why, how, what. How was your grandmother's wedding? If you're talking to your grandmother, what was your wedding day like? What were the customs? What was your dress like? It gives great insight into, the history of everything. Many times, while searching records in family research centers, this is from the paper, Sarah discovered a passenger manifest from the Adelaide which listed her great-grandfather as one of the passengers. He sailed on the Adelaide from Antwerp, Belgium to Chicago, and Chicago is spelled Chekage, so obviously a translation. He traveled in steerage class, which is the section of the ship near the rudder. This was the cheapest way to travel, but even so could be equivalent of 6 months' worth of wages for a common laborer. Steerage travel was far from luxurious. It had been described as a dark, noisy, smelly, stuffy deck with bunk dormitories. And it goes on to say her family had told her she was of certain ethnicity. Come to find out she wasn't. It was completely different. So with patience and perseverance and kind of knowing what you're looking for and having a goal in mind, you can research and find much on genealogy of your family history.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so let's take 60 seconds to collect our thoughts, and then we'll each provide feedback for you. I'll let you know when our 60 seconds is up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, either Minnie or David, maybe one of you want to start us off, and I'll certainly provide feedback too.
Yeah, yes, I can, if possible. I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so first, I like the introduction, the first paragraph very much, especially for the first sentence. When suddenly someone has the bright idea to start researching their family history, it's very often short-lived. I think the reference of the sentence is very good. It's sharp and it's clear and it makes something like an impression. And I like the first paragraph because there is something like raise the questions for the readers. How someone didn't make something, but with some help, they finally managed to do it. So this hit my curiosity. And I also like what Donna just read about. I think what she read about for her writing, there is something like showing the way to do research, the research method, something like the finding like from little detail, which means that his grandfather take this journey from Belgium to Chicago. Such little detail can provide some insight to the bigger picture for the whole research. And yeah, actually, I think I learned a lot from Donna's writing about how to research one thing. And also, I enjoy reading the conclusion, the last paragraph, although Donna did not read that just now, but I like that when I was reading. Okay, this is my feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Yeah,
Are
this
you
is.
ready, or do you want me to go?
Can you all hear me?
Uh-huh.
Great. It's a very interesting essay. I thought the first paragraph was a bit too long. I like how it starts out when suddenly someone has a broad idea to start researching their family history. It's very often short-lived. Nice, snappy introduction to the case study. I would have gone down to, let's see, disappointment that ensues because very little information can be found if you are limited in your data to begin with, and then cut out the next few down to the mistakes. I just sort of get lost in that paragraph. So I would try and make it shorter and snappier. I like how she goes through the process of how it's hard to research family history and the challenges involved. So other than just some maybe reducing the word count, just some tightening up, taking out extraneous words, I think it's pretty well done. I've only had a chance to look at it briefly, but those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. In case there's someone out there who asks the question, well, so why don't we have long paragraphs? What's the big deal? I know you said that you felt like you maybe got lost in it. Can you expand on that a little bit about why you're encouraging her to shorten that or divide that first paragraph differently?
Well, generally in the first paragraph is where you catch the reader's attention, whether they want to decide whether they want to study or continue reading to the end. And you want to let them know as soon as, in as few words as possible, what your argument's about, what you're trying to say.
Yes, I think so. So I think when paragraphs are too long, we're not, we are unsure what the main catch is, right? What the main point is
And
of that
I'm
paragraph.
tempted to just skip over long paragraphs.
Minnie, what about you? Do you do you have any thoughts on paragraph 8?
Okay. If this is too long, maybe we should work on make it shorter. But I really love the first sentence because the question, because the when is very long, and then you have a long session and then a short session. You mean that like your enthusiasm, your passion is very big, very long, but suddenly it comes to an end. I feel something like that from the first sentence, so I will give a star for it, give a plus for it.
I would keep that first sentence, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree, Donna. I think I almost think maybe you could break the paragraph up either before or after the question that you ask in the middle. What are they doing wrong? That could either be the final sentence of the first paragraph or the beginning of a new paragraph. I also was, I think, Min, you used the word captured in your essay, so I was captured by your essay, Donna, with this first sentence, and it made me think about, it kind of puts you in the mindset of someone who wants to research their genealogy. You did teach me a lot in this essay about how to go about researching genealogy and the importance of questions. I really appreciate that because academic writing is built on questioning, and so I like anything to do with questioning. That's great. And I really liked the details. I was excited to go on the journey with Sarah to find her history and to learn about her ancestry. With regard to your question about whether expertise is subtle or explicit in terms of your essay, I actually thought maybe of a different kind of question, not whether you should or shouldn't include expertise, directly, so much as how explicit is your argument and what is your argument? Because one of the criteria for the case study is to use the case study in service of developing our own argument. And I kind of feel like there's an argument in there. There are two arguments in there. One is about the different kinds of questions and how rigorous the process is for researching genealogy, right? But I think the larger argument that's a little more broadly applicable, even outside of genealogical research, would be the tension between our desire to have kind of easy research through TV commercials, you know, or through internet searches, really quick, easy things, and how in truth many things take, you know, it's an iterative process, and asking really tough, complicated questions, and talking with multiple people such as you and the person at the Church of Latter-day Saints in the Family Resource Room. So I wonder if you might bring out that argument a little more fully in the conclusion, but then also in the somewhere, I guess after that, what's currently your second paragraph, where you say, you know, down, maybe raise the question about, you know, what that means about the promises commercials make, or the promises that brief internet searches can lead us to.
Okay.
And I just want to say I have nothing against Ancestry.com. I've never even tried it. I don't know, but I think
it's a great resource. It is quite expensive, and I've been working on my personal family history for over 25 years with aliases and all this stuff as actual last names and no records of these aliases, and orphanage, you know, my father was in an orphanage, so tracking that down, it does get very frustrating, but without Ancestry, it can still be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So was it that are there two layers to Ancestry.com? Is there like a quick layer that doesn't cost as much, but then you can buy the full amount and then get a fuller experience? Is that what happened with Sarah?
She did not pay for the Ancestry.com subscription because it is quite expensive. You can find names and dates, but you can't go much further than that. They'll tell you who your great-great-grandfather was and possibly his, you know, lifespan, but after that there was nothing. So.
Mm-hmm. And maybe then that's part of, maybe you want to reflect on what lessons that offers us in terms of an argument too, because that suggests that I guess she could have, had she had the resources or wanted to devote the resources to that, she could have paid for the fuller service and maybe ended up at the same place as she is right now. But, you know, maybe if you want to take it on yourself, right, it's going to take a long time and a lot of research, but maybe it was more fun in the process for her. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I have one final question that'll apply to everybody's paper as we're about to turn to person number 2, which we haven't decided if it's David or Minnie, so both of you be thinking if you're person number 2 or not. But Donna, what citation methodology were you using in this paper?
The social sciences.
Is that the APA?
APA or MLA, I don't recall, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So most social sciences use APA, American Psychological Association, and the reason and that's not the one that I'm most familiar with because I'm from English and we use MLA more of the time than not. But I think that the in-text citations that you use, where you cite the websites, that might need to be adjusted. So typically it's some form of author and date, or author and page, author last name and page number, or if you don't have author names because these are websites, often you use the title of the website or the web page instead,
okay,
rather than the actual URL. And so you might go to I think I have a resource on there for Purdue's online writing lab,
okay.
OWL, and you can look up APA if that's what you're using, APA in-text citation, and see the examples. But whichever school or method you're using for each of you, go ahead and try to, as you're polishing this draft, go ahead and try to adhere to the conventions of that methodology.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you.
So, David, who's person number 2?
Oh, no, could be me.
Okay.
Okay.
David, is that okay, Minnie? Yes? Okay.
Okay. Okay.
David, what would you like feedback on? And if you have received feedback already, what did you learn from it? What new questions emerged? What would you like our focus on?
I have gotten peer feedback. One of my concerns was my word count is about 50 words over what the assignment called for. I'm not sure how to reduce it. One person said that that's not a problem. And another person noted that my case study definitely expresses an opinion. Is that okay, or is that not okay?
All right, we will address that. Okay.
Okay.
And is there anything else that you'd still like feedback on?
Just the general stuff.
Okay. All right, why don't you choose a 1 or 2 paragraph segment to read to us?
Oh, jeebus. How about I read the first 3 paragraphs? Is that okay?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Just how viable is wind power as a solution to the global warming crisis? Is it realistic that we can fulfill our energy needs entirely or even mostly with non-polluting wind power? For the Union of Concerned Scientists, wind is the way to go. And then I put in a quote. Harnessing the wind is one of the cleanest, most sustainable ways to generate electricity. Wind power produces no toxic emissions and none of the heat-trapping emissions that contribute to global warming. This and the fact that wind power is one of the most abundant and increasingly cost-competitive energy resources makes it a viable alternative to the fossil fuels that warm our Earth and threaten the environment. Close quote. Union of Concerned Scientists, October 2013. A look at the paper's references reveals an almost exclusive reliance on the wind industry for its sources. It all sounds so rosy. However, wind does have its drawbacks. There are visual and wildlife impacts as well as unpredictability of wind flow. Many folks don't like looking out at dozens of towers 400 feet tall with blades spinning and areas big as a 747. Birds and bats can be killed. Remote forests can be fragmented. One more paragraph?
Sure.
Or?
No,
Okay.
you can read one more. Go ahead.
Okay, many of us would probably be willing to sacrifice some bats and birds and even the beauty of our natural landscapes for wind power to provide all of our energy needs, if only this would eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. A new study, Marvel et al. 2013, published in Nature Climate Change, indicates that technically we could enough. Oh, I got a problem there. We could enough power from wind at Earth's surface and from the upper atmosphere to power human civilizations 100 times over. Currently, in comparison, wind power provides about 18 terawatts of power worldwide. That's just what is technically possible, not what is financially or politically feasible. Plummer Brad, September 10, 2012.
Okay.
Then I go on to discuss the various problems and drawbacks.
Okay. Let's take 60 seconds to collect our thoughts, and then we'll offer you feedback. Okay. Okay. Donna or Minyi, when you feel ready, maybe you could start us off, please.
Do you want to go, Minnie?
Yeah.
You can go, Minyi, sure.
Okay. Yes, I think this is a very clear, written, well-structured test on natural science. I think this is something in the field of natural science. And
Yes.
I must say that I love the last paragraph. Actually, although you read the first four, but I love the last two. The last two, your conclusion, I like it very much. Especially the last sentence. I think you end this essay very strong. You end it with, I like the last sentence. What we could end up with, should we pursue, blah, 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 blah. And then you say it's a world with the problems of fossil fuels as well as the problems of wind farms. I think you make a very strong, clear end, and I like it because it's a very strong impression. And for your questions, you say you want to shorten your test. I'm not sure. Uh, I don't know how to do it. Maybe give me something like an hour or two. Maybe I will give you a solution, but not now. Okay?
Donna, go ahead.
I did enjoy the paper quite a bit, and that's one of the topics that I think about a lot, is how we can reduce, carbon footprint and our emissions and greenhouse gases and stuff. It was very strong. It was very well organized. As far as shortening it, in the second paragraph, and I was trying to number them as I went, but there's a couple places where the citations, I think, could have been shortened, maybe with the ellipse, to really highlight just the important parts. And I think that might help you to shorten, your word count. For example, the second paragraph, while much of it is greatly important to it, I think we could probably cut out one or two sentences in there and just use an ellipse to keep the continuity of the citation.
I'm going to echo. Were you finished, Donna, or did you have more to say? Because I have a comment about the quotations too.
No, that was pretty much it. It was very well written and very, very interesting for me. I learned a lot.
Okay, I'm going to echo what everybody has said, and I want to focus for a minute on the quotations, because I agree with what Donna said about the optimizing our ability to kind of curate quotes as a way of forwarding our argument, but also controlling our word count and your reader's focus. And so the quote that Donna suggested that you had read aloud to us, but also the quote that's on my page too, that begins, well, I wasn't sure when the quote ended, so the paragraph that begins next, wind turbines require a lot of land, according to Energy Advocate. Do you see that paragraph?
Hold on.
I think it's paragraph 6.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so there's a quote that begins with wind turbines can't be spaced tip to tip.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's another quote that could be reduced. And then in the following paragraph, I thought that there might be a way to reduce that paragraph too. I wasn't sure how much was coming from that source, from Energy Advocate or not. It's a lot of material from Energy Advocate anyways.
Okay.
I thought that might be a moment to reduce. And I want to just also say that I can empathize right now with the prospect of needing to cut words, because I'm working on an article and I need to get it down to 10,000 words, and
Ouch.
I know. I've reduced it. I'm at like 1360 something right now, and it's really hard to reduce. And so I've actually enlisted the help of someone I know, because often having other people look at it as you're doing here, so I just want to reiterate how important this is, you know, having other people look at it, they can help you think about it in ways that we can't. But, you know, as far as the class goes, when I teach, I say to students that, you know, word counts are, for me, a general guide. You know, I wouldn't ever mark a paper down because it offers a little bit. What's more important to me is that you've kind of fully explored the topic, and that you have kind of nicely concise prose, and that you've also explored it in the way you want to. But in many disciplines and in many publication contexts, word count really does matter. So I think it might be a useful exercise for you to try to get those 50 words off. Another way of doing it is just to really tighten up every single sentence. Look for any extra word ever in any sentence. So let's just take a random sentence here. Does someone want to choose a sentence that has, you know, a sentence that has more than 6 words to it, one that we can actually work with, and we'll try to just reduce it?
Okay.
Which sentence? Can we practice with the sentence on reducing some extra words? Does anyone want to suggest, or David, do you want to suggest a sentence of yours?
Well, maybe the first sentence in the 4th paragraph. Many of us would probably be willing to sacrifice some bats and birds and even the beauty of our natural landscapes for wind power to provide for all of our energy needs. If only this would eliminate greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay.
That's a lot more than 6 words.
Okay. Excellent. All right, so Minyi or Donna, do you have any suggestions for ways that he can maintain his meaning, but perhaps eliminate a few words at a time? Because I think if I were working with reducing 50 words, I would probably go about this approach, right, rather than take out whole paragraphs. So any suggestions? Or David?
Okay, we can say the need of energy is more important than bats and birds, or even the natural beauty of landscapes for some people. Finish. Oh. If that could eliminate the CO2 okay. Emission. We can say CO2, and it's very short, and it saves the greenhouse gas emissions space. Okay. Yeah.
True. Donna, suggestions do you have?
I pretty much agree with Minyi on this. Maybe to keep, just off the top of my head, to keep the sentence structure the way it is, many of us would probably be willing to sacrifice some aesthetics and possibly wildlife in order to provide our energy needs if it would eliminate CO2.
Yeah. I think either of those are good options.
Okay.
I have a question. I think energy needs is not very clear, but if you say eliminate the greenhouse gas, I mean, when you say it eliminate greenhouse gas, it's very clear, but our energy needs is quite general. Maybe you can just delete something like our it can be delete, I mean the energy needs. I mean, if we keep that, sorry, if we keep the last sentence, if only this could eliminate greenhouse gas emissions, then it's clear. You don't need to say our energy needs, because you have made it clear in the last part. Do we need the general idea in the front?
I hear what you're saying. I think you're right. I think it's.
I'm a little confused.
Sorry.
Do you want to try again, Minyi? Because I think I understand what you're saying, and I think you're making a good point.
Energy needs is too general.
I mean that it's not clear. What do you mean by energy needs? You have made it clear in your second part. in the if
Uh-huh.
part, if only part. So you need the if only part. You don't need the, okay, if we really want to delete some words, then I will probably get rid of the part of our energy needs.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good. I am really impressed, David, with the amount of research that you've included and the kinds of research. I feel like it's a I don't have that much familiarity with wind turbines, but I feel like you've introduced me to the literature on it, and I appreciate that. You definitely do have an opinion in this piece. I'm not sure I would call it just an opinion, though, because it's grounded in research. So I think you have an argument that you're making, and it's a clear argument that you do not think wind farms are the answer, right, or the
Exactly.
cleanest energy alternative. And so that comes out clear. And you asked at the beginning, is that okay or not? And I think, yes, it's an argument, and it's your argument, and you base it in research and base it on the case study, so yes.
Okay. Great.
Where I am not sure, this is where, so your paper reminded me of the kinds of papers that I read sometimes in philosophy, where the structure of an argument is really integral, and the reasoning and the premises, and this is where I wish I had more expertise in philosophy. So any philosophers out there, maybe go to the forum where David's paper is and offer your informed guidance. But I guess I want to say that the only question I have about the opinion or argument is that it definitely seems that you are, I'm going to use the word pretend, but I don't mean it that in that way, but you start out the paper kind of under the guise of asking a genuine question, but in fact, by the end of the paper, what I have thought to be the case is that you already had your opinion before you started writing. Like, so it's not an exploration so much as you're taking us back. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that you can structure your argument by keeping your argument intact, but maybe changing the title so it indicates that, or maybe that third paragraph is key, where you say it all sounds so rosy, however wind power does have its drawbacks. Maybe if you include in that paragraph something more about the conclusions that you're going to reach, that that might help me. I'm not sure. I guess what I'm suggesting is that at some points in the paper I felt like you were providing research in favor of wind turbines only to very quickly debunk it. And I think there are concepts called logical fallacies, and you all can look them up online at various places, but it's not a fallacy so much as I'm not sure that it's as effective a way of arguing as other ways might be. So I'll leave you with that, like maybe offering a little more concessions to wind farms, or qualifying what you say, or maybe saying, you know, in limited amounts or in certain places. Those kinds of things might enable your argument to be more palatable to more people. Okay. And let's see. The only other question I had was, I wanted to, Minnie had mentioned the second to two paragraphs were your favorite paragraphs, and I agree. I really like, it's very clear at the end, right? This case study looks at two separate conclusions, and you name them, and then you have, my other favorite sentence in your paper is, there's still another catch in the use of wind power. I really like your topic sentences, how you continue to relate it to the forward movement of your argument, right? And finally, additionally, so I think you do a good job of taking the reader through your argument. So the only other question I had was the same question I had for Donna about the citation school that you're using. What citation methodology?
I was trying to use the natural science method, where you have last name, comma, and year.
Okay, so is that, do you know the name of the citation methodology for that
It's either Chicago or the Council of Science Editors.
Okay, so whichever one it is, just double check again. I don't know those in my
Yeah.
head, but double check the ones that I'm not, the part that I'm not sure about is I'm not often accustomed to seeing in the parenthetical citations the first name. It's usually just the last name and the year, and sometimes there's a
Okay.
comma and sometimes there's not a comma, so double check those fine-tuned aspects. And the website citations also, I'm unaccustomed to seeing the URLs. Usually I see titles of web pages or websites.
Okay.
Okay, and then finally, in the third paragraph before the end, we have finally Ozzie Zenner in his book Green Illusions, and then you write on page 41, and I usually encourage writers to not spend their precious word space citing page numbers. So usually that goes in a parenthetical citation afterwards with parentheses 41, or sometimes it's
Oh,
period 41, depending on what school of citation you're using.
okay.
But go ahead and transform those to citations rather than actual parts of your text.
Okay.
All right, so thank you so much, David. And let's turn, if we're ready, to Minyi's paper.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. What would you especially like feedback on, and what have your peers already do you?
I haven't read the peer feedback because I worry too much. I think my submission for the first draft was terrible. So this is a revision I done last weekend before we go to the forum. So I worry too much. I could not take such criticism. So I have not yet read my peer feedback. But what I'm concerned is that I have never been in any university in the Western country, so I learned everything from this course. So I'm not sure whether this is the correct method or the correct format to write a case study. And I think that compared to donors or okay, sorry, I forget your names.
David.
Okay, David's answers. I think my one, I try to put a very big idea into 1,100 words. And maybe, I think my writing is not as clear as the other two. Because the other two, the structure I can feel it's very clear and maybe it's easier for the reader to understand. But I try to put a very complicated big idea in just something longer than 1,000 words. Maybe this is not okay. And also, when I'm working on this case, I feel that I need to know the dancer, the one I'm talking about, much more in detail in order to decode why she is great. So, okay, this is my concern. Finished.
Okay. All right, so we'll provide feedback on both of those counts. What our thinking is on your big idea, and then whether you need more intimate knowledge of the dancer. So, would you like to read a 1 or 2 paragraph segment for us?
Okay, I read 2 paragraphs, which I think maybe is most interesting. Okay, and this is the paragraph. Sorry, I always lose count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The paragraph 9. Okay, I begin. To decode the making of a contemporary artist, I would like to define contemporary art based on my personal study. First, contemporary art, by its words, consisted from contemporary and art. As for the contemporary part, it's critical. It brings new perspective. It is avant. It is a plain truth. In my question our time or human thinking, I see a lot of similarities between contemporary art and researching. As for the art part, it is it should be sensitive. Sensitive. It is sensitive. It should touch our heart like Bach, Schubert, or Manet did in previous eras. Its delivery should be founded by a mature technique, so that the artist could be able to sit side by side with the previous master like Michelangelo's, Cézanne, Picasso, etc. And then I will read the number 11 paragraph. Such qualities could be usually found in the group of people who look for their true identity, who constantly, sincerely, deeply ask, who am I? What made me? What could I like to bring to the world? What is the true me? What is the true value? What is right and wrong for me? Let's say, if I were Oedipus, could I not ask myself such questions as I have found out the tragedy and the sin I committed? People with tragedy are forced to ask themselves questions. Similar are the people who are polluted by two or more different cultural values. That is, people who are in cross-cultural contexts. Also, such quests might be common for homosexual groups, as being homosexual usually means a struggle towards gaining social identity and personal identity. So maybe this is the two I think most interesting. I have a third one, but let's save time. We have 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, let's take 60 seconds of our final 10 minutes, and then we'll give you thorough feedback.
Mhm.
Okay. Donna or David, go ahead, please, when you're ready.
Okay. First off, I thought it was a wonderful paper. I enjoy good cultural dancing and so on and so forth, and I really felt like I could visualize this dancer and her passion and the way she was performing. My comments would be on the first paragraph I think it was the first paragraph that you read, such qualities could be usually found in the group. I mean, it was the second, paragraph 11, I'm sorry. When you start asking questions, who am I, what makes me, what would I like to bring to the world, I think you could break that up maybe into separate questions or two groups of questions rather than one long, just separated by comma sentence.
Oh.
The second to the last paragraph, you have some quotes. I dance when I'm asked to dance and when I'm not asked to dance. I really like the idea. I just think it could be cited a little bit differently. I'm not sure what school of citation you were, but I was a little confused with that. And my last comment, the conclusion, I absolutely loved. It had beautiful flow,
Oh, thank you.
wonderful vocabulary. It was very descriptive. I have a background in more creative writing, and it really gave me a nice mental image and picture, and I just loved it. I thought it was great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you, Donna.
You're welcome,
Love you.
Minnie.
Oh, I love you.
David, go ahead.
Okay. Minnie, I also loved your concluding paragraph, the very end. I thought it was very good. I don't know if you need to say to conclude, start it off. You can probably just jump into it.
Okay.
At the beginning, the first paragraph reads more like you're writing a travel article than a case study. If you could find some way to state your question or your argument a little more succinctly at the beginning, I think it's buried I think it's kind of buried in subsequent paragraphs. But I had to sort of read a while to find out what your. I know it's in the title, but not looking at the title, I had to read a while to find out what your case study is about.
Okay.
And I had,
Yeah. Okay, good.
And I'm under the impression that we're supposed to make an argument that answers a particular question. That's how I understood the assignment. And when we get into page 2 is when you start getting me interested, and it tells you about how you become this expert artist. But it took me a while to get there. So that would be my main criticism.
Okay. Yeah. You are puzzled at the beginning. So it's okay. Thank you. Yeah, interesting. Thank you. Great.
Minnie, first of all, I want to say I really liked it. I really liked the emotion of it, and I felt like the emotion of it was fitting for a case study about a contemporary artist and a dancer, because that's such a central feature of that field, of that work, right? That evokes emotion when you watch a performance. And so I thought it was really courageous of you to put emotion in a case study, and to have yourself be made vulnerable like that too, where you talked about that you were crying, that you were weeping too. I thought that was a nice moment.
Okay.
In the essay.
So is that means usually we don't do that in the case study, or we don't okay, or
I don't know that it means that. I think okay, so for instance, let's take David's and Donna's case studies, there was less emotion in those.
Yeah, I feel that too.
And that could have been because of the approach that they chose, but also because what they were writing about maybe didn't necessitate the use of emotion in the same way that maybe yours did. So for wind turbines, certainly people feel passionately about them, right? There are emotions involved, and people love bats and birds, or don't care about them. But there's, I think you were talking about your experience of watching a performance and why you felt like she was an expert. And in Donna's case, people feel very emotional about their genealogies, right, and knowing their place in the world. Certainly, it's large questions like that. But so I don't think I wouldn't draw the conclusion that there is or isn't a way that they do it. I just wanted to remark on yours that I think it was appropriate and strong in it. So the paragraph, I really liked the paragraph to decode the making of a contemporary artist, and I love that word, decode. I'm going to use that word sometime soon in my own writing. Thank you for reminding me of that word. It's a good word.
It's from Project 1, Decode of Talent. It's from Project 1.
Is it really decode?
Talent code, so you have decode, talent code.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. Right. So you got it from Cole. Good. Okay. I did feel like the paragraphs that followed the decode, I liked those two paragraphs. The one that, I guess it's paragraph 10 and 11. If we look at the first part, and then such qualities could be usually found. But I felt like those paragraphs were not as clearly structured within your argument in terms of the location of them or the organization of them or the topic sentence for them. By contrast, the paragraphs following that are very clearly organized for your readers. You say that being educated in both China and the U.S. contributed, so I know what that paragraph is doing, right? It's talking about her multicultural background or bicultural background. And then the next paragraph is the body, nature, and passion towards dance, and I know what that paragraph is doing. For paragraphs 10 and 11, as a reader, I was just less certain of what their function was, which don't take this to mean, please, that you should eliminate them. I think they're important. I just think anchoring them more explicitly with a topic sentence or thinking about where in the essay they belong would be helpful for me.
Okay.
Okay. And then I agree with what I said about with Donna's and David's papers too, with the School of Citation. Just, are you using, what method were you using?
I'm trying to using MLA.
Okay. So for MLA, with the quote, go ahead and quote, please, either the author of the interview or the place where the interview took place. You can look on Purdue OWL too, so the in-text citations should be there. But for that one, you typically use author, last name, and page number. If there's no page number, just author, last name. And then for your works cited, it's usually organized by, well, in fact, it is organized in MLA by author, last name, or title of the web page if you don't have the author last name. And then finally, we just have 1 minute left, but I wanted to say this is a really great example, Minyi, of the way we work as writers, that sometimes we'll provide a draft to people to get feedback, but in the meantime we develop it further on our own, and maybe in a different direction. You said that the draft you submitted to the peer review, you ended up revising it anyways on your own even before peer review, and it's different now. So I just want to encourage all of us to not feel like just because you give it to someone else, don't feel like that means you have to stop working on it. You can keep working on it yourself. But I would say don't feel so nervous about looking at your peer feedback. I think you might be... Oops, did she leave? Oh,
Gee,
so I think Minyi's connection got lost. So
might be.
She's coming back in. I think Rebecca's going to help get her in.
I apologize for the clock again.
Well, while she's trying to rejoin us, maybe you can watch at the end. Minyi, I just wanted to say, we can all as writers revise even when we are waiting for feedback from other people. And Minyi, go ahead and read your peer feedback. Everybody is working to be constructive and helpful, informative peer feedback in our class. So hopefully you'll get that. Okay, so David, Donna, Minyi, thank you so much for joining us.
For the opportunity.
Yes, and it was great to talk with you, and I really enjoyed reading your writing, and thank you for giving feedback to each other.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Great class.
Oh,